Hello and welcome back to the Restore Britain podcast. I'm Charlie Downs, I'm your host, and I'm joined today by Rupert Lowe, our leader, and Marlon West, who is a child sexual exploitation campaigner and our candidate for Mayor of Greater Manchester. Hello, chaps.
Hi.
Afternoon, Charlie.
You'll have to excuse the sheen on all of our foreheads as we are in a small studio during a horrible heat wave, so try to ignore that. Marlon, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, your work, and why you're standing for Mayor of Greater Manchester?
Okay, so I've been a single father since Scarlett was probably about 7, which is my daughter. I qualified as a nurse from the University of Manchester back in 2001, and I've worked for the last 30 years, really, because I worked as a nursing assistant prior to that for the NHS in more or less every borough in Greater Manchester. It was only up until recently that I walked away from the NHS to get involved in the rape gang inquiry. The reason I got involved in the rape gang inquiry is because my daughter, from 14 to 18, was horrifically groomed, raped, tortured and trafficked all around the country from Greater Manchester, particularly Tameside.
I think anybody could understand why that would motivate a father like yourself to get involved in politics and try and do something about this. Because it seems to me, especially based on the report that we recently published, that the authorities in Greater Manchester and everywhere else have been, in many ways, actively complicit in this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So local authorities, Greater Manchester Police, as far as I'm concerned, they have been complicit in this.
Yes.
And again, the reason why I came into politics, I tried dealing with this at a local level, professionally with, let's say, social services and the police, and I got nowhere. It wasn't open for discussion. Hence, I needed to make a drastic change.
Yeah.
And that's why I came into politics. I came into politics by mistake. I am far from any career politician.
And Rupert, obviously the Rape Gang Inquiry report has been out for, I think, over a week now. The pickup has been tremendous. What have you been hearing about it?
Well, the pickup's been tremendous, and I'm very grateful to Marlon for all the work he did. And he's in the report, his situation's in the report, as part of this pervasive evil which has basically beset Britain. Largely, I think, as we say, and when we set out to do the Rape Gang report, the genesis of which was the fact that Nigel Farage promised it in the chamber if the government didn't have a statutory inquiry, took all the media plaudits and then didn't do it. So we've done it, and it's been a huge amount of work. Marlon knows that because he's been part of the witness bundle creation, part of the hearing, part of the creation of the report. There's been a huge amount of work going into it, and I think we, at the beginning, we had no preconceived ideas about who was doing it, why it was happening, how it was happening, and how basically it had basically propagated to the extent that it has, which is countrywide, Charlie.
Yes.
So, look, I mean, in answer to your question, it's gone viral in America. It's gone viral in Europe. It's gone viral in other parts of the world, particularly Australia too. I've done some media in Australia. I think most of the Anglo-Saxon countries can't quite understand how it's happened. And I think they're concerned that it may be happening in their countries. India's another example. I did an Indian interview yesterday because it's happening in India where I understand Pakistani Muslims are doing the same thing to Indian girls. And we know that it was happening to Sikh girls who, in our report, then took control of the men took control of their own destiny and sorted it out to a large extent, which I think it's fair to say the police stopped the white men doing as far as their women were concerned.
Yeah.
So the Sikhs just took it in under their own wing and dealt with it themselves. So the disappointing thing is that the media here doesn't want to touch it. So the BBC, you may have seen my interview on election night in Makerfield with Laura Koonsberg with Sky. I mean, they really have taken very little interest in what's been happening. And I think that's because they all know that to some extent they are complicit in the growth of this. The essence of a free media is that they should be challenging any establishment failures and bringing them to the attention of the British people. And they've singularly failed to do that. So the mainstream papers, most of the, well, certainly the monopolistic BBC, who was supposed to inform, educate, and entertain with complete impartiality, has shown absolutely no intellectual interest. And I think, and Marlon can comment, I think we produced that paper because the government failed to have a statutory inquiry. They're now saying they're going to have a statutory inquiry, but they've watered the terms of that down. They're kicking it into the long grass in terms of timing, so a lot of the findings, if they do make any findings, will be found way beyond the next election, by which time nobody will be held accountable.
Yeah.
But we went into this, and I think we've got, as I said to Patrick Bet-Davis on the podcast, we've now got a document that should stimulate some serious debate. It's certainly stimulating debate in America. It's stimulating debate across other Anglo-Saxon nations. And the question is, why is our media not taking an interest in it? And it's a big question to which I don't know the answer. But I think we went into it with no preconceived ideas. It wasn't done for any political advantage. It was done because the most vulnerable people in our society were being systematically abused and their life was being destroyed unnecessarily, when a sort of an application of British law would have sorted it out very, very quickly.
I'm going to read a short passage from your foreword to the report, which I think is, can sort of preside over this conversation we're about to have about Manchester, which is obviously one of the hotspots where this kind of thing has been going on. You spoke about the cause of this, and I think you addressed this very well in this introduction. You say the root cause was immigration, beginning with the British Nationality Act in 1948 and escalating under Tony Blair from 1997 onwards. Believing proud nations to be responsible for the mid-20th century destruction of Europe, our post-war leaders embraced diversity and multiculturalism as the supposedly civilized alternative. This report establishes beyond any doubt that this open society obsession has in fact enabled untold barbarism of its own. Oil and water do not mix, and cultural differences going back centuries are the genesis of this problem.
Well, I've made it very clear, and I've made it very clear on various interviews and podcasts that I've done, that multiculturalism was the way in which I think post-war Europe decided it was going to undermine the nation state and undermine the cohesion that created the high trust societies that we have developed over many thousands of years, and they don't develop overnight. So I think it's meant that it's brought in people who don't understand how we operate. And I've said in the past, Lee Kuan Yew came to London after the war, and he modelled Singapore, which, by the way, is an incredibly successful society now, on post-war England, where you had total trust. You had people with honesty boxes for newspapers in London. And the whole thing was a nation state at peace with itself. But in order to undermine our nation state, they had to create this multicultural society. So I think multiculturalism, as Enoch Powell said in 69, is undesirable, and it has palpably failed.
Yes.
But in dealing with the issue, I think what we've always said, and it's in our mass deportations document, we've actually produced a document so people can read what our plan is to try and restore the British Constitution and Britain for the tax-paying, honourable, decent, law-abiding British people. And that starts, as we know, with detaining and deporting people arriving illegally, then finding and deporting people living here illegally, then deporting the 10,500 foreign criminals in our prisons, and then we turn our attention, in the same way that Sweden and Denmark have, to sorting out people who are living here on benefits, who've never contributed to Britain.
Yep.
And we do it by basically dealing with the welfarism. So we reduce welfarism, we create a hostile environment, and we encourage people to go home naturally. And at the same time, if necessary, we incentivize them to leave. But what we can't do is be unfair or illegal towards people who, through no fault of their own, have been encouraged in a thoroughly underhand, devious and misguided way to come and settle here. And if they're contributing to our economy, as I've said in the past, and they are making a sort of valuable payment of taxes and a contribution, and they accept our laws and they've integrated into our society, there are people who don't think that is desirable, but nevertheless They've come here in good faith, and we cannot treat them in a way which is not either legal or fair. So I think I've always been consistent in my view that I want an accountable government representing the British people in Westminster. That's what I've spent the last 30 or 40 years fighting for since I questioned the Maastricht Treaty. I want an accountable Parliament, which we haven't got. We've been undermined, as we know, by Tony Blair's constitutional reforms, which has created a corrupt judiciary. It's created an unaccountable civil service, which is out of control. Far too many of them, they're paid far too much, their pensions are far too big, and they don't do enough. So, I mean, look, we've got a lot of work to do to restore a country which basically has accountable government, which was envisaged basically under our British Constitution in 1689. And we've gone such a long way from that we've, thanks to this fear of being called racist, which is, I think, part of this post-war agenda, made people very frightened to actually call out what is clearly wrong. And so I think we offer people the best opportunity to responsibly return to a British nation state which represents and puts above all else the interests of the British people.
Yes.
And I don't think I need to say it any more clearly than that. I wrote that introduction, and I wrote it because I believe it. And I've seen how the European Union has grown through deceit. And nothing which grows through deceit is ever a long-lasting affair. And I think you will see the end of the euro. It will collapse, but it'll be like communism. When it collapses, there'll be nothing left. It will have completely rotted, which is what's happening now. And you're seeing, European economies, these half-witted people like Andy Burnham want to go back into Europe. The British people voted correctly, in my view, to take back their sovereignty. But what's happening is the rejoiner and the remainer Burnham wants to go and join this failing post-war monopolistic sort of group of nations who are, as a percentage of global GDP, declining every year.
Yes.
Why do we want to be part of that?
God only knows. I think for him it sort of brings a sense of safety, an ability to maybe blame others for the
Well, I think they're all just devious. They're
over.
all just devious, Charlie. The British people didn't vote for that in 2016.
So with that, I think we're going to go into, Marlon, your 10 priorities for Greater Manchester. And fittingly, the first one is to open a full rape gang inquiry across Greater Manchester, including Rochdale and Oldham. Now, I'm sure we can all understand why that's a priority for you, why that's your number one priority. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about why you think that is more important than anything else?
Because Manchester has been on the map for so long around grooming. Rochdale, Oldham, Tameside, Manchester city centre. Yet, especially Andy Burnham with Oldham, it's just been brushed over. There hasn't been a proper, fully comprehensive inquiry. And this is the important bit, with statutory powers, that we can make all these people accountable. There's been lots of campaigning. Other than myself for Tameside, there's lots of campaigners in Oldham, in Rochdale, who have never been listened to. Don't get me wrong, I do believe this is across the country. This is a virus. However, at this moment in time, I live in Manchester and I care about Manchester. This needs to be done.
So Marlon, can I just ask you, because I think it'd be really interesting for our viewers, if you could just clarify, Burnham did start to look into this evil, this grooming gang evil, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I think I'm right in saying that he fairly quickly slammed the lid shut. And he didn't actually see it through. Is that fair?
That is correct.
Why don't you tell everybody? And why do you think he did that? Why didn't he want to get at the truth?
I think, like most politicians, especially Labour politicians, these are Labour-run councils. And if you think of Greater Manchester and Manchester State Council, they are Labour-run. Once they open up Pandora box, and I'm not just talking social workers who are covering it up or police officers, I'm talking a lot higher than this. MPs, councillors, That's the fear, because once that box is opened, it will make them all accountable, and it will destroy Labour. Even just in Manchester, it will destroy them nationally, because once the truth is out, the public will be in disgrace. That's why. Like, the other point to that is myself and my daughter were in the Baird inquiry. The Baird inquiry was an independent investigation into the treatment of women and children by Greater Manchester Police. And we've been published in that. My daughter had gone missing at 14 years old. She'd been missing for 2 weeks. Imagine as a father, I was so distressed. And then I find out the police did pick her up. They took her back to the police station with a male officer as well and strip searched her after she'd been raped systematically for 2 weeks. And their excuse was they were looking for an e-cig.
Bloody hell.
And nothing has been done. I have not heard anything about that since. There is a complaint, which is another system that I get frustrated with. So it goes to police standards.
Well, all these complaints procedures, Marlon, are designed to frustrate the complainant.
Yeah.
They're not interested in the truth, and I get it like you. They don't bother to answer DSARs, which you and I are required to do.
Yeah.
They basically are a law unto themselves. It's basically the police marking their own homework, and they have this extremely sort of bureaucratic way of deflecting any criticism which they don't want to hear. So I think you've been incredibly brave to appear, tell your story, and I think it's fantastic that you're now standing as Mayor of Manchester to give everybody an opportunity to vote for you to put this right. I think that's incredibly powerful, and I'm delighted that Restore Britain is helping you to do that.
Thank you. I feel very humble. Thank you. What I will promise is around the safety of women, and I don't like the word girls, children.
Yeah.
Let's say it as it is. I promise I will get accountability.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes me quite sad that when you read names of towns like Rochdale, for example, the only thing that name brings to my mind is the kind of thing you're talking about. These towns which are beautiful. I mean, Rochdale is a beautiful town. I mean, admittedly I've not been there, but I've seen plenty of pictures of it. Picturesque English town.
Rochdale, for example, Rochdale Town Hall, and anyone in Manchester will tell you this, is one of the most gorgeous Victorian buildings that probably Great Manchester's got.
Yeah.
Oldham, some lovely architecture, again, from the old time of Mills when there was a lot of work there and money. Yeah. But a lot of these are being knocked down now.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they're not maintained anymore.
It's just symbolic, isn't it? I think it's symbolic of what's happening to our nation as a whole. Your second priority, Marlon, is putting visible policing back on our streets and cracking down on antisocial behaviour. Now, this obviously links in with the first point, but why don't you tell me a little bit about the failures of Greater Manchester Police and why you think this is such an important priority?
Because, you can drive to any town in Greater Manchester 7, 8 o'clock at night, and it is full of youths causing problems, violence, criminal action. But you never see a local bobby, as I call them. When I was younger in Manchester, you always knew the local bobby. There is no police on the street, and by the time they turn up and somebody reports an incident, they're gone. We need the police back on the street again. Within that as well, the police need to start doing work with these gangs of youths. That is definitely a big priority because, again, it does fit into my daughter. She was groomed via a gang. So there is, again, let's say as it is, paedophiles operating within these gangs.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that this is going, completely uncracked down on is just unbelievable. So your third priority is review housing targets and put brownfield land and infrastructure first, a slightly lighter priority.
Yeah. Another one that I have a special interest. So within Greater Manchester, most boroughs, they are looking to build on Greenland. Residents are campaigning against it. What frustrates me, there's a lot of other land within Greater Manchester where they can build on, rather than building on Greenbelt. Like, again, one of my areas, I played there as a child. We have deers running around. It is gorgeous, but they want to build 2,000 houses on there.
Yeah.
2,000 houses, let's say 4,000 cars. We already have horrendous traffic in the morning. And where are all these people going to work? We don't have employment there.
Yeah.
Nothing. So it's just absolutely bizarre. The other thing, what I have been doing, obviously for Restore Britain, we have been leafleting before Great Yarmouth, before Makerfield, and I was shocked at some of these large council estates, the amount of properties that are empty.
Yeah.
So why don't they start working on their own properties first? Because, you know, everywhere's got a housing problem, rather than building on gorgeous land.
I do find that really depressing, because the same thing has happened in Kent, where I'm from.
Yeah.
Like fields like you were describing that I used to play in when I was a boy, are now, they've been flattened and turned into kind of IKEA flat pack housing estates. And, you know, and even then, they're not even affordable for somebody like myself. So I'm sure the young people of Greater Manchester will be thrilled to hear that your priority is house building, because God knows that's, you know, as a generation, one of the most distant seeming achievements that we can possibly get to. Something that was once seen as being just a given, that you would own your own home, now does feel like something that's out of reach for many people.
I think that's
and
not
not paving over, you know, the beautiful.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
A few years ago, they built some lovely houses near me that the council sold the land, £500,000 each. How is that affordable housing?
Yeah.
Is Burnham responsible for that? He is, isn't he?
He's part of, it was part of that deal because he's part of the Labour councils. Yes.
It does seem that all problems seem to lead back to Labour, and Burnham particularly.
Yes.
He's the guy that's going to be running our country.
Yes.
In the very, very near future. So
As you know, I call him the Ghostbuster.
the Ghostbuster.
He's the last chance for the Labour Party, I think.
And again, with Burnham, I think it possibly will be worse than Starmer. The only difference is he will do it with a smile.
Yeah. Yes, he's a very sinister individual. So, priority number 4 is launch a high street crime task force to tackle dodgy shops and criminal fronts. Now, having been to Makerfield recently, this was certainly a problem in places like Ashton, as it is a problem everywhere else in the country. These, you know, vape shops and Turkish barbers and American candy stores, which are obviously fronts for illegal activity. They're always empty. They never have any customers. They only take cash. And they tend to be run by people who, in many cases, don't speak English. They're very obviously recent migrants, and yet they still remain open. They clearly have a good cash flow. So makes you scratch your head about what's actually going on there. So,
absolutely. So, again, I don't want to go on about Tameside too much, but I do live there, and I know my town. Obviously, I know Manchester, but I know Tameside better. So, even 500 yards from where I live, we have Market Street. Market Street has 24 takeaways, 9 barbers, half a dozen E6 shops. And again, just to point out, one of the takeaways, Scarlett was part of the grooming process.
Really?
Through the gangs, yes.
And it's still there?
It is still open now. And the police know this, the police have investigated it, it's still open now. But it's a really good point. The hairdressers I go to on that street, every fortnight, has been there since I was a kid. My barber would tell me only recently they've opened a Turkish barber next door to him.
brilliant.
And he's complained about it, and the council have just ignored it. But what he was telling me, and I found this fascinating, the 4 barber chairs that they actually put in there, £7,500 each. And he said, I couldn't afford that. And we got 4 or 5 barbers working for us. I couldn't afford that, and I couldn't even justify it. He said, but have you seen anyone in? He said, nobody is going in there. So the running cost, the actual setting up the business, we're talking thousands and thousands. Where does that money come from? And it's the big elephant in the room. We all talk about it behind closed doors because we're frightened of being called racist. But everybody Everybody disagrees with it. These need investigating. Like I did one of my own investigations into the takeaway where my daughter was groomed, and I passed this over to the tax. It was registers the business as a furniture shop,
Right.
but it's a chicken shop, fried chicken shop.
Yeah.
And this is what they're doing. All of them across the country. I don't think Manchester's anything special. Need investigation. But what I will say, let's start doing this in Manchester now. We can be the gold standard for the rest of the cities and towns in the UK.
Yeah.
But somebody needs to start doing it.
Well, I've got to say, one of the darkest elements of the revelations of the Rape Gang Inquiry report, for me, was that the criminal networks that were doing this kind of thing weren't just doing it because they were seedy degenerates who just enjoyed it. They were doing it because it was a business.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
grooming, trafficking, abusing, torturing, and raping these girls in exchange for money. You know,
Yeah.
they were passing these girls around, in exchange for cash. And so everybody has known for a long time that these Turkish barbers and vape shops and all the rest of it are fronts for money laundering because it's obvious. But I always assumed it was probably just drugs or possibly something darker than that, maybe human smuggling, human trafficking. But it is also, alongside those things, the grooming gangs that are laundering their money through these businesses.
Yes. So, just to be clear for the viewers, it isn't some random paedophile. This is organised crime.
Yeah.
So a lot of these girls who have been groomed, during the day I'll have them doing county lines, and then at night they'll be prostituting them out because they can earn money out of them 24/7.
Yeah.
And then they're laundering all the money through the barbers, through the E6 shops. The new one, which has only really just hit Manchester, is the sweet shops.
Yeah.
This is what they're doing. This is where the money's going. Yet, again, I just... I'll say it again, it's the elephant in the room, and it shocks me that nobody will do anything about this.
Yeah. And I've said before, and I will say again, that if you are one of the rare customers for one of these shops, then you are actually participating in this kind of criminal activity. You know, you are actually part of the problem if you patronise these dodgy Turkish barbers and vape shops and the rest of it. You should boycott them. That's my view, is that we should boycott these businesses and have the police investigate them, because if they've got no customers, how the hell are they staying open?
To be fair, I will stick up for Great Manchester Police a little bit. Since 2016, they closed down 2 shops. And these weren't takeaways. These were newsagents, what I call newsagents. Yet the next day, they're open again.
Same people.
Cousins, wives, family members.
Yeah.
The next day. Because all they have to do is just change the name.
Yeah.
And even with the barbers, you see it where the first owner disappears after a month or 2, possibly prison.
Yeah.
It doesn't close down, and somebody else moves into it and runs it. And you see this a lot of change of ownership.
Yeah. This must link to the clannish aspect of certainly the rape gangs.
Yeah.
Which is that there are these large networks, yes, of criminal associates, but also brothers, uncles, cousins, all this sort of thing. Now, I don't know about you, but if my brother or uncle called me up and asked me over to his flat to do the kind of thing they were doing, I'd probably call the police. But that doesn't happen in these communities.
Because it's culturally accepted.
Yes.
That's why.
Yes. So priority number 5 is to clear out Piccadilly Gardens and make it safe for families again. Now, for a non-local, why don't you explain what that is all about?
Piccadilly Gardens, what I'd like to say first, obviously I'm a lot older. So in the late 70s, early 80s, when my mum would take me into Manchester for school uniforms or whatever, and it would make it a special day, we'd go to Piccadilly Gardens because it was a garden. It was gorgeous. Everybody knows that. What it was like in the 70s and 80s, and probably prior to that. What it has become is youths, lots of them. I'm saying youths, teenagers to people in their 20s, across all Greater Manchester. I have worked with this area professionally. So one of my background is substance misuse. So I was a substance misuse nurse. Spice, we've all heard of Spice.
Yeah.
Spice started in Piccadilly Gardens.
Did it?
Constantly, we have problems with it. When I say problems, most of it is criminal and fighting. I've dealt with, also professionally, a number of girls who have been groomed there because it's a target, because they know it's an area where you've got a load of teenagers who are intoxicated with substances, which makes them more vulnerable.
Yeah.
But everybody in Manchester knows about Piccadilly Gardens. You have a teenage child, the last place you want your child to be is Piccadilly Gardens because the drugs is on a different level. So, we hear it constantly in the Manchester Evening News of somebody being stabbed. So there's a lot of knife crime there. Nothing's being done about it. GMP will say this and they'll say that, and this has been going on now for 5-6 years. Nothing's been done.
So clearing it out, what does that look like?
So, police presence.
Yeah.
But also, I am a strong believer of somehow we need to interact with these teenagers because they're just going to move to somewhere else. Yeah. And also work with the parents or work with the social worker who's assigned to them. Whoever that guardian is, we need to be working with them and giving them an alternative.
Yes. So priority number 6 is back pubs and the nighttime economy by tackling crime, red tape and business rates.
Okay. So this come from, I've never been a landlord. I've always worked in health. But in Makerfield and campaigning, we went round to all the pubs. I know you did as well, Rupert. I was shocked. I felt rude that I didn't even know how much money they are not making. There was one youngish landlady, and she was making £100 a week. And I said to her, "But why? Just go and get a job." She said, "Because I'll make myself homeless. I live above." And then when she started breaking down how much she's giving to the brewery, how much VAT she's paying, out of the profit, and the other one was the sports channel. I couldn't believe paying thousands and thousands
Just to show it?
Yeah. I just thought it was,
No, she had rates.
plus the rates.
Yeah. And we met a publican who was going to shut down if it doesn't change fairly quickly. You can't make any money.
And what's important, and again, we've seen this across the country. Manchester isn't anything special. Of all the pubs what have closed down, and I'm going to quote you on this. It's the heart of the community, and it really, really is. Yeah. We need to. There's not many pubs left. We need to keep onto them, keep them open, and support them. And I don't understand. Again, why the government hasn't intervened to support them. Do Labour just want rid of all the pubs? Do they want us completely isolated in the community?
Well, is there an agenda, Marlon, to break up the community?
Yes.
Do you think that's all part of this multicultural,
absolutely,
sort of misguided
to
plan?
Just dilute the community?
The stronger the community is, the less problem we have with a lot of this stuff, because people talk to each other in the pub. It becomes a focus. Yeah. It's almost a sort of safety valve. Yeah. Not just for that, but also for people who are lonely. Yeah. It's
face-to-face contact.
It's a focal point.
It is.
Do you think the changing demographics of Greater Manchester is having any effect on this?
Within the pubs?
Well, just in terms of the kind of people that use pubs. And
obviously, in higher cultural areas, pubs are well and truly gone. Yeah. They've closed down. However, I think in more your white British areas, no. I think there's a difference there. Yeah. I've got a meeting next week with a local landlord, and this pub has been there since the 60s, and he's looking at closing down. And he said, "Can you come?" And he said, "I don't know what support you can offer me, but please meet up with me," which I am going to do, because there was 6 pubs on this council estate, and I've probably been in them all when I was in my 20s. It is the last one on the estate.
Yeah. This is one of these dark kind of, less spoken of consequences of mass immigration and demographic change is that, you're not bringing in just atomized economic units who consume and produce at the same rate as the people who are here already. You're bringing in people with very different values, very different ideas, and very different consumption patterns. People coming from, for example, an Islamic country, they're not going to want to use a pub, are they? Because they don't drink as part of their religion.
Yep.
So of course, if you have a concentration of Muslims in an area that was once white British, as you said, any pubs there are obviously going to close down.
Yeah.
So I think this is an essential part.
It does worry me to what point, in another 10 years, are the lefties basically going to say pubs is racist?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're already there, to be honest. So number 7 is stop obsessing over central Manchester and focus on towns like Rochdale, Oldham, Bury, Tameside, and so on.
Again, really, really important. So what Burnham's done, in my opinion, he has spent a lot of his time and focus on Manchester City Centre, but neglected every single one of the boroughs.
And why is that? Is it because he wants to present a kind of certain face of Manchester?
Yeah.
Like a Potemkin village?
Yeah. And, B network, B buses, it costs millions to set up. It isn't cost effective. He promised the public he wouldn't put the fare up, but he had to. And it still cost us money. That is not financially beneficial. And also, it's a bit rubbish. Everyone complains about it. It's unreliable service. That seriously needs assessing. The other boroughs, and it kind of fits into some of the other things I said, we need employment within the other boroughs. We need businesses to invest. Only last year, in Tameside, Rolls-Royce pulled out of building a plant there. That would have been amazing for Tameside, but not even just Tameside, the rest of the boroughs. And more so for the younger people, because there have been opportunities there to do proper apprentices as mechanics or secretaries or whatever. That would have been a massive opportunity.
And why was that? Why did that not happen?
So they pulled out on the last minute. We're not completely sure. One of the things was the infrastructure of the motorways. The M60, I read somewhere the other day, it's actually worse than the M25 now.
Gosh, I don't envy that.
So again, the infrastructure, the motorways, all the traffic management needs prioritising.
So number 8 is hold a women's safety summit in every area of Greater Manchester. Now, obviously, we've covered this ground quite heavily already, but I think it's self-evident why this is necessary in Greater Manchester.
Because it gives women a voice.
Yeah.
And what I would do, because I've experienced it firsthand, is I would listen. Because nobody has listened to any of the girls, any of the women. And it's not just women, to be fair, it's parents.
Yeah.
Everyone forgets parents in all this. We're the ones who are dealing with this. So we have regular summits for women in every borough where they can come confident with confidentiality, because I'm not sure that has happened in the past.
And it is amazing for a party like the Labour Party, which is nominally committed to women's rights and all the rest of it, that this kind of thing has gone on and flourished under their watch, and that it takes a party like ours to actually say, well, maybe we should listen to what's happening to the women of somewhere like Greater Manchester. Maybe we should give them a platform.
Makerfield, and Makerfield is slightly different from, let's say, Rochdale or Oldham. But even in Makerfield, when we were knocking on the doors, and what I was saying to them is, what are your concerns? Safety. Safety came up every single time. Yeah. Even when they didn't want to vote for us, they still say safety. Because they don't feel safe going out at night.
Yes. So number 9 is support new businesses across every borough and create more career opportunities for young people. Now you've already touched on that.
That's what. This has to happen. All these deprived areas, unemployment, and a lot of that is because there's no opportunity there. So we do need to look at, like I was saying about Rolls-Royce, looking at the bigger companies to start investing, not in Manchester City Centre, but in the boroughs, because the Manchester people are hard-working people.
Yes.
And they want to work, and they want that opportunity. And Burnham's never done that.
Yeah, yeah. It's very sad how so many of these towns have just been hollowed out. No industry there, no jobs. And then again, like it's those towns that have been most heavily impacted by multiculturalism. That's something I can never quite figure out why it's the case. Why is it those towns that have been, flooded with people from all over the world? It's very insidious in my view. So number 10 is set up GMCA community hubs in every borough to hear local concerns and keep residents informed.
Yeah, that needs to happen with Burnham's legacy. They have a lovely office on Oxford Street, the GMCA. I've been there a number of times. I'm not sure we really need that. It's extremely posh. We need to start building hubs in the boroughs where they're staffed 5 days a week and actually getting to know your own communities and where that money's going to be spent.
Certainly sounds like a more sensible use of funds than having a big plush office.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's something you encounter quite regularly on the Public Accounts Committee, Rupert. It's just excessive spending when it comes to the comfort of the staff. But
Well, we see taxpayers' money, Charlie, disappearing down the drain at an incredible rate. And there's no accountability. There's no ministerial understanding of what needs to be done to change it, because most of the ministers haven't got any experience.
yeah. And they're probably quite enjoying the plush offices themselves.
And these socialists, they love a big office, big car, bit of status. Even though, they say they don't. Just watch what the hands are doing, not what the mouth is saying. You see them. I saw even old Keir Starmer hopping into a top of the Range Rover outside 10 Downing Street, looking like a relieved man. Yesterday at Prime Minister's Questions, I've never seen a man look so relieved in my life. And he was actually quite funny yesterday at Prime Minister's Questions. He cracked a joke, which was, which perhaps he should have done more often when he was in power.
I do worry that we're going to be sad to see him go in a year's time under Burnham.
I do.
But Marlon, I'm interested. So you've got, I think, Manchester, I was chairman of a Manchester stockbroking business called WH Ireland.
Yeah.
So I sort of know Manchester quite well. I used to go there to the board meetings quite a bit, and they had an office right in the centre of Manchester. When you talk about rebuilding opportunity and, if you like, life for young people, will you centre that around sport and sports clubs? And my question is, you've got some great sporting franchises in Manchester. I mean, can you work with them? Or are they already absorbed in their own academy structures and other things? I'm thinking of Man City, Man United. I mean, you've got football clubs everywhere around Greater Manchester.
Yes and no. I think with United City and it's quite prestige. What we need to be doing again with the children, with the teenagers, with the kids on Piccadilly Gardens, is set up the football clubs and the sports clubs so they can get to that level of maybe getting on the youth club at United.
But it just takes them, it gives them a meaning in life. We've done it in
It
Great
gives them a
Yarmouth.
meaning, yes.
And interestingly, the genesis of the Saints, Southampton, which I was chairman of, it was a church vicar who set up, that's why it's called St Mary's, it was the church there. Basically, it was set up to help exactly the same way that we see it now, to give young men an opportunity to exercise, participate in a community sport, and then start to hopefully launch their ability to contribute to the community. So I think it's incredibly powerful, sport linked with opportunity and giving people, a chance to actually mix with other people.
Yeah.
And share a common objective.
Yeah, absolutely. Where I'm from, Ricky Hutton, the boxer.
They are. Classic example.
Yeah. Ricky Hutton trained in Hyde. He's actually from Hattersley originally, trained in Hyde, and the amateur boxing club. And then obviously became pro. That club has just been closed down. It was run by the community. The council have sold the land off. We don't know this yet, but we're being told it's going to be a HMO.
Brilliant.
They wouldn't reallocate them. So they wouldn't give them another place to carry on. There was 50 kids going to this boxing club, from ranging from 6 to 18. When they had meetings with the council, and I believe they also put pressure on Angela Rayner and Jonathan Reynolds. When the local councillors got involved, they said, we're not going to support you with this because we're not promoting violence. We have 2 big boxers who have come from Hyde, Ricky Hatton and Stephen Bell. We should be proud of this, and we should maintain it, because a lot of these kids are proud that Ricky Hatton's from Hyde. So they want to do boxing, they want to do sports.
Which it's certainly happening in my constituency in Great Yarmouth, and I think the people who actually run these clubs never get the credit. A lot of them do it for nothing. They do it because they love the sport, they love the area, they love the community. And it certainly is something, I think, which, if you were to be elected mayor, you could help support and propagate, couldn't you?
I'd be like a dog with a bone. I wouldn't let it go. Obviously, a lot of the questions today, kids, girls, it's really important because they're our future, and we need them safe. We need them to have a positive life, and they are not getting it in Manchester, under Burnham, under a Labour-run councils.
It does seem to me, Marlon, just kind of wrapping up and thinking about what you've said about your programme for Manchester, that on the one hand, Greater Manchester is at the forefront of what is being afflicted upon our country by our government, whether it's mass immigration, demographic change, Islamisation, the covering up of terrible crimes, the degradation of public services, the degradation of community, the deindustrialisation, and all the rest of it. It's on the absolute bleeding edge of all of those things. And it seems to me that the programme you're offering for Greater Manchester is something that the entire country would benefit from, because what you're doing, it sounds to me, is putting the people of Greater Manchester first. You're putting first the most vulnerable in Greater Manchester, as you're saying, children and women and people who are falling through the cracks, people who are, in need of help but not getting it because the priorities of the current authorities are somewhere else entirely.
So if I became mayor, I'm not a career politician. I've said that. I was brought up when I was younger on the council estate. I didn't go to private school. I've come from the bottom and worked my way up, got into university. I want other people to have opportunity that in Manchester. But this is really important. If I become mayor, we will be the gold standard for the rest of the country, because we will speak out about the things what are happening in our communities that nobody wants to talk about, especially Labour. Yeah.
And I've got to say, Marlon, I mean, we've known each other for a little while now, and you are one of the most driven men I've ever met, and it's understandable given your life experience. I think it's one thing to grow up in this country and see what's being done and to dislike it, for example, how in the way that I do, but to have lived and experienced the rawest, most brutal manifestation of what's going wrong in Britain, which is to have your own daughter caught up in the grooming gangs. I think that would motivate anybody to do the kind of thing that you're now doing. So with that, we're going to leave it there for today.
Well, Marlon, I'd just like to say, I admire people from Manchester. I mean, Manchester, as you know, I think I'm right in saying, was the centre of the sort of cotton trade.
Yes.
It was incredibly wealthy, as you say, but it's still, having got to know a few people in Manchester, I think the real driver of our economy is often in Manchester. You've got real wealth being created. You've got people doing real things, not like London, where it's all based on printed money and quantitative easing and sort of getting high on your own supply. Manchester, I think people do understand the value of money. They still effectively respect Manchester and their communities.
They do, yes.
And I think, to your point, if you are elected, and I hope you are, you've got a great opportunity, I think, to create the model of how we would like to see Britain restored.
Absolutely, yes. And the other thing I'd like to say about Manchester, the people are lovely and warm. They will talk to anyone. And I think that's special.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we're going to leave it there for today. So thank you all very much for joining us. If you're not already a member of Restore Britain, please do join us. It's just £20 a year, which, as Rupert likes to say, is the cost of 2 pints in some upmarket
2
London
pints
pub.
in the wrong pub, Charlie.
That's right. That's right. So thank you for joining us today, and we will see you very soon.
Not Wetherspoons.
Not Wetherspoons.